Hi guys, and welcome back to my channel. Today I'm here with all of the palettes that I purchased throughout 2020, and I thought I would do a little bit of a summary for you guys as well as rank all of the different palettes. But before we jump into any of that, if you're new here, please consider subscribing. I would love to have you in family. But let's just jump into the palette that's on the bottom. So before I actually jump into the palette that's on the bottom, I have 3 honorable mentions that I am not going to include in the ranking, but I did pick up this year. And the reason why I'm not including these is because I purchased these within the last month and I feel like I haven't had enough time to play around with them. And I did purchase 2 of them from Anastasia's website during their Black Friday sale, and that is these 2 right here. So I picked up the Jackie Aina palette, which looks like this. Like I said, I haven't played around with it yet, so that is one of them. The second one that I picked up from the sale was the Sultry palette. It was still available on the European Anastasia website, so I did actually decide to pick this up because it is a palette that I've been wanting for such a long time. So I did pick these 2 up, and then I actually picked up a third Anastasia palette as well, but this one I did pick up from eBay secondhand, so it is pretty much like untouched. There is a little bit of use in a few of the eyeshadows, but not too much, and I did pick this up for a really good deal. So that is the 3 palettes that I picked up really recently, but I haven't used them yet, so I'm not going to include them in the ranking, but just know that I did actually pick those up as well this year. Now actually moving on to the palette that is on the bottom, and I don't think I mentioned, but I will have 10 palettes that I'm ranking apart from the 3, so in total I picked up 13 palettes, but I'm only ranking 10. So the first palette that is all the way down in 10th place is the Mint to Be palette. I did pick this one up from Colourpop in combination with quite a few other palettes at the beginning of this year, and this is what it looks like. I am missing a shader here because I'm working on that in my panels eyeshadows, but this one is just a palette that I haven't gotten much use out of. I feel like these are not the greens that I prefer. I prefer kind of either olivey tones or slightly kind of warmer tone greens, whereas these are obviously very cool toned. There are a few shades in here that I do quite enjoy, but it's just not a palette that I've reached for a lot this year, and I feel like this is one that I would potentially maybe depot a few shades that I like and declutter the rest, but for now I'm happy to have it in my collection, and there is a use to it because I don't have any mint shades anywhere else really in my collection. But yeah, it's just not my favorite. The one that comes in 9th place is actually a palette that I haven't used yet, but since I've had it for such a long time, I still wanted to include it in the ranking. So I feel like I might put this differently once I actually start using this, but it's a palette that I've had since I think July, but I just haven't reached for it yet, and that is the Charlotte Tilbury Charlotte Darling, and this one looks like this. I did receive this for free when I placed an order with Charlotte Tilbury, and I just haven't used it, and that is part of the reason why this is ranking so low, because I feel like if I haven't had the need or like an urge to use it, I feel like it's not my favorite palette. And from the swatches, these shades seem really smooth, and I feel like the formula will be super nice, but it's just not a palette that excites me, and that is why it comes in at number 9. So the palette that comes in 8th place is a palette that I really recently used on my channel, and that is actually my Huda Beauty Gold Obsession palette. This is my newest palette apart from the 3 that I'm not going to include in the ranking, but since I included this in my 1 week more palette, I feel like I have a really good idea of the palette, and unfortunately it's ranking quite low compared to everything else that I have. The color story itself is super beautiful, and I'm really happy to have this in my collection, and I feel like it's something that I will reach for from time to time. The only thing with this palette is that the formula is a little bit trickier to work with. The mattes are absolutely beautiful, some of the best mattes that I've tried. However, the glitters or the shimmers are, like I said, a bit trickier. So although it is a palette that I do enjoy, it's not my favorite, and I feel like even though the color story could potentially be really good for an everyday palette, it wouldn't be an everyday palette for me, and that is why it comes in at number 8. So in 7th place we have another Colourpop palette, and this one is the Honey palette. So it is the yellow monochromatic palette, and this is what this one looks like. I have actually switched out the shade in the middle because there was a yellow glitter called Palooza there, but I did switch it out with a more kind of orangey shade because I didn't want to have the glitter in the palette anymore. But this one is one that I do quite a lot like, and I feel like it has a use in my collection. I feel like I enjoy making yellow looks, but it's not the most versatile palette, and that is why it's coming in kind of towards the end of the ranking. All of these shades are a really nice formula, and I do have pan on them, one of them, but that is from one of my projects where I was focused on this eyeshadow. And overall it just has some really nice tones in it, but it's not, again, something that I could use every single day, because then every look will be very similar to the rest, and that is another reason why this comes in place number 7. In 6th place we have another palette that's been in one of my 1 week 1 palettes this year, and that is also another Colourpop palette, and the palette is Going Coconut. This one is one that I think would be work better for an everyday palette for me. I think in the long run I'll probably be a bit tired of it, because I do like wearing colourful looks, although the look I'm wearing today is quite neutral apart from my liner. But overall it is a beautiful palette. There is a few flaws with it, like these 2 shades look really super similar on the eyes, and I don't like this shade right here, which is matte with glitter in it. But overall it is a really nice palette, but it's just not something that kind of excites me. It doesn't have any kind of standout shades for me. I mean, that cocoa is super beautiful, but I don't feel like there's anything in this palette that I couldn't live without or couldn't dupe in my collection, and that is why it's coming in kind of in the middle of the ranking. But if you're looking for a small everyday palette, if you are a lover of neutrals, I feel like this would be a super nice palette for you. So in 5th place we do have another Colourpop palette. Like I said, I did pick up quite a few at the beginning of the year. All of these came from the same order, but in 5th place we have my Just My Luck palette, and this one compared to the Meant to Be is definitely green tones that I much prefer. They are slightly warmer, some of them are very cool toned, like this color here in the corner is very similar to the ones in the Meant to Be palette, but it also has those kind of grungy greens here, like a warmer green here, like more a chartreuse color, and it just greens that I really enjoy. I did work on this in a project where I think I wore it 15 times, and every single look I created with this palette was a look that I really loved, so that is why this comes in at number 5. So we have come to my definite top palettes of the year. The rest of them I do really love, all of them, and this is a palette that I picked up in January of this year, and that is the Sultry palette from Anastasia. This is one that I think is absolutely stunning. It's more of a neutral palette again, but it does have a lot more variation than the Going Coconut palette. Some of the tones are quite similar. I feel like the shade Twig here is kind of the same tones that is in the Going Coconut palette, but this one has a bit more warmer tones. It also has some silvery tones, so I feel like this is overall much more versatile. It's a beautiful palette, and the shimmers in here are absolutely amazing, and overall the Anastasia formula is something that I really enjoy. I obviously picked up quite a few palettes from Anastasia this year, but this is an absolutely stunning palette. I'm not sure how easily it is to get this anymore, because I know it's limited edition, but if you don't have this and if you've been thinking about it and it's still available, I would definitely recommend this palette because it's absolutely stunning. So in 3rd place we have the very final Colourpop palette, as well as my favorite Colourpop palette of the year, and that is the Lilac You a Lot. I wasn't expecting to like it as much as I do, because I also have the It's My Pleasure palette, which I do like, but this one is just way better for me. I have pan in 3 shades here. All of them are from my Pando's eyeshadows, sorry, and then there's some other shades in here that I absolutely love. I love the tones of Fluffy as well as Iffy. Iffy is one of my favorite shades. I absolutely love this one, and I just feel like this is again a bit more versatile than the It's My Pleasure palette, and it's just such a beautiful palette. I would probably recommend this more than the It's My Pleasure palette if you're looking for a pepper palette from Colourpop, because I do like this one more, and yeah, I just love the variation that is in this palette. So we have 2 palettes to go, and in 2nd place we have another Anastasia palette. This one is the Amresi palette, and I absolutely love this one. It was actually a gift from my boyfriend, and I'm just in love with it. This is what the palette looks like, and I like this because I love these kind of pinky tones, but it also have a lot of variation again. You have the warmer transitions, it has some golden tones. The only thing I don't really like about this is 2 pressed glitters in here, because they're not very good compared to other things, but overall the rest of the shades that are in this palette is absolutely stunning. I love this kind of purpley plummy tone down here, and it has one of my absolute favorite eyeshadows from our mainstream brand, which is the shade Barb right here. It's absolutely stunning. It's just so sparkly and shifty, and it's just something that I haven't seen in any other, like I said, mainstream brand. But yeah, this is a palette that I really treasure in my collection, and it is probably, I don't know if it's my favorite Anastasia palette, but it's definitely up there in one of my favorite ones. So we have come to place number 1, and if you've been looking at my videos over the last couple of months, you might not already have figured out which palette this is. But the first place goes to the Naked Tutorials and Beauty Bay collaboration. I picked this up when it was first released, and I absolutely love this palette. It's always really tricky to show this one though because it has the double opening. But let me see if I can do that. This is what the palette looks like. It's super big compared to everything else. The pans are quite large. But this palette is just so beautiful, and the main reason this is in the top place is because of the shimmers. The shimmers are absolutely amazing. They're not really like anything else I have in my collection. I would say the Barb shade from the Anastasia palette is quite similar, and then my Cleona shades, which are my absolute treasure. This one is quite similar because it's also very glittery. They're also very shifty. They're not the same. The formula isn't the same at all, but I would say that those are the only thing that comes close. It's actually funny because I was working on one of these shades in my Pando's eyeshadows, which is the one I have pan on now, and when I swatched this next to the other shimmers I was working on, someone commented saying that it's kind of funny how much more metallic and shiny this shade was compared to the other shimmers, and that just wraps it up. They are so beautiful, and I'm in love with the shimmers in this palette. But also on top of that, as you can see, there are quite a few bright mattes in here as well, and there were a few mattes that I was missing in my collection. Like the blue down here called Amsterdam is just such a beautiful blue. It's very kind of blurple, which is something that I was lacking in my collection. The red shade called Mikai, which is in the center of the palette, is another one that I didn't really have in my collection. I didn't have a true red, and it's just honestly overall such a beautiful palette. And I've heard that some people have issues working with the mattes and blending them out and things, but I just found that working on a non-set base with an eyeshadow primer and kind of tapping them on and blending them out lightly, kind of how I normally apply eyeshadow anyway, worked really well with these, and I didn't have any issues at all working and playing with this palette. But that, you guys, was all for the ranking. I really hope you enjoyed this video, and please let me know down below which was your favorite and least favorite eyeshadow palette purchase of the year. Like I said, my favorite one was the Naked Tutorials palette, and my least favorite one was the Mint to Be palette. But other than that, I really hope you're having an amazing day, and I'll talk to you in my next video. Bye guys!